Hi everybody, you're with Sean Wimpry. Today we're going to be looking at a number of things. Firstly, we're going to be, the overall goal is the installation of SAP NetWeaver 7.4 running on top of SAP HANA Platform Edition 1.0 Support Pack or Service Pack 6. That's 1.00.60, and of course all this will be running on top of a SUSE Linux Enterprise Edition 11.2 for SAP, and it's all a 64-bit edition, of course. I put together a little blog a while ago regarding the installation of SAP HANA on Oracle VirtualBox. So today I'll be showing that in this YouTube presentation as well as all the extra bits. No doubt due to the size of this recording we'll probably have to split this over several sessions, so just bear with me. Right, as you can see in front of you, I have got Oracle VM VirtualBox installed. The current version of this that we're running is 4.2.16, which is the latest as of September 2013. I've already defined a virtual machine here, the definition of it. There's nothing installed in it, and we'll just go through these various settings because there are some here which are quite important. So we've defined the type as Linux and the version is OpenSUSE 64, but it doesn't really matter. But I'm assuming there must be some predefined setup options within VirtualBox regarding to this version. Basic snapshot folder, clipboards and drag and drop options. You guys can come through this and obviously during your own setup you can just pause the video to look at the specifics. Base memory. So to install HANA you do need a minimum of 25 gig. Ideally I've got a PC here which has got 32 gig of RAM in it, which is pretty good. Processor, I've dedicated 8 cores, or 8 virtual processors I should say, to this virtual machine. And acceleration options, just flick through these pretty quickly. Here you can see the media for the SUSE Linux 11.2 SAP media, and here's the virtual hard drive. Network adapters are pretty important, so we've got 3 defined today. One we've got for the internal VirtualBox network, so I use multiple virtual machines. One is my media storage, so my software storage, so we NFS mount that over to our virtual machines for the installation of SAP and HANA later on. So this is the internal network ID. We have a second adapter defined, which is just a NATing to the physical adapter. And then we've actually got a bridged adapter also to the same physical adapter, and you can see they've got unique MAC addresses. This is done automatically by VirtualBox, and you can obviously modify this stuff as necessary, and nothing on adapter 4. Shared folders, just a couple of local drives, because you can actually copy settings between the different virtual machines if you choose to. Right, I'm going to now before we start, there is one thing that we do need to do. So I noted this in my blog, which I'll link to, not my blog, sorry, my SAP Community Network blog, regarding some of the kind of nuances of installing HANA/SAP, I should say, within Oracle VirtualBox. And one of these has to do with the chipset instruction, which is the CMP XCHG16B, which if you do a quick Google on what that instruction set is, so HANA needs this to actually be able to install successfully. It'll fail if you haven't got this set, and for some reason Oracle VirtualBox have this disabled by default. So if I just oops, that's my old VirtualBox name, sorry, Python is the new name. So you can see that's currently set to 0. So what we can do is just set this parameter, go back and do the get, and you can see that that's now set. You do need to restart your virtual machine, I believe. If you have restarted it and started the installation without setting this, you would need to reboot the virtual machine. I believe this instruction set is related to some unusual setting to do with octal calculations or something along those lines. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but as I said, a Google search will reveal everything to you, of course, as Google does. So back to it. What else do I need to cover quickly? You will need to define some internal IPs once we get this thing up and running. So make sure you've got something reserved. You do need to be able to have NAT abilities on your router. So if you don't, that would probably be a bit of a limitation for this process, because as you can see, I've got the various SAP toolsets and so forth actually installed on my physical desktop, and the IP that's presented to the physical machine is different from the IP internally on the virtual machine, so you do need to have the ability to better NAT into it. Right, let's jump into things. So if we just get the ball rolling here, we'll get this guy running. The first thing you're going to notice is we've got a couple of options on the front screen. So it's booting off the media, so you can see it's already detected the different options here from the media. The first thing I'm going to change is actually this video mode. I just want it a little bit bigger, makes things a bit easier. If I was to boot from the hard disk at the moment, there is no OS installed, so it'll just sit there doing nothing. And you can always restart the virtual machine to get back to this point, but for now we're just going to carry on with the installation. Some things to be aware of in terms of initial limitations. You do need to have, as I said, a kind of minimum of 24-25 gig of RAM. The size of your virtual hard disk that you want to define is generally, I've found anywhere between kind of 400 and 800 gig is kind of what you're really after, just so you can store a bit of software in your file systems. And obviously the more processors you have, the better, so I would recommend a quad-core PC. And by the way, I'm not running a Westmere chipset machine at all. The beauty about this is later on there's a little, fairly well documented actually, workaround in terms of the hardware check. So if I just bring up CPU-Z, you can see I'm actually running an Intel Core i7 2600K, so fairly early generation, Sandy Bridge. Memory, 32 gig there, and my main board or my motherboard is a Sabertooth P67 from Asus. Pretty good kit, runs pretty well. So I've had no issues in terms of performance so far. So we'll just get the stuff up. Right, here we go. So I'm going to be rushing through this pretty quickly. I would recommend that you read the various options as they come up. As I said earlier, you can also pause the video in terms of, or the YouTube clip in terms of if you want to see the exact specific settings I'm using. This is quite a nice feature. Good old SUSE. So it's set it to Pacific New Zealand, which is I'm in Auckland, automatically for me after I click. We're stalling onto a fully virtualized guest. Oops. You'll see my mouse runs out a little bit, and that's because we haven't got the virtual guest add-ons installed at the moment, so this can be a little bit of a pain in the bum sometimes, but we'll get through this. Partitioning, so because my virtual drive is 800, or been defined as 800 gig, it wants to create a single large root volume SDA2 as the disk. Because I'm running on a single physical hard drive, and it's a standard 7200 RPM, terabyte type drive for a PC. No matter how I carve up the file systems and so forth, I'm not going to get any performance gain. So you've got an option of either switching to expert mode here, and you can go in and change anything from the partitioning. So you could make your OS drive file system a bit smaller and so forth, and then later on we can carve up different disks and file systems. Or in my case, because I'm going to be cheap and dirty for this, we're just going to leave it as the default, and we're going to have everything installed under one drive. Agree to the terms and conditions, and let's get the installation running. Now this is going to take a little bit, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pause the session at this point, and I will resume once it's run through. I'll let you know if there's any challenges along the way, but I can pretty much guarantee there won't be. Back soon. Hi everyone, right, we're back. A quick update. We can see now that the hard drive had been formatted and completed, and sorry, the virtual drive, I should say, virtual disk, and now the SUSE Linux packages are being installed. Again, we'll pause and come back later because this does take a little bit to run through, even though it looks like it's going pretty quick at the moment. While we're here, one thing I'll show you quickly, something that you'll need to do. This is my TARDIS, as I call it. Another one of my virtual machines. This is my software repository. One thing I wanted to show you was later on in another session that we'll do later, there's a HANA hardware check, and it's a Python script. You can find it under the HTTP server Linux x86-64 directory /server. HANA hardware check.py. If I just quit out, you can see here. Where are we? All right. There we go. I'm showing the old support pack 5 directory at the moment. I just need to get the support pack 6 software on here shortly, but it's all the same. So if we just have VI, the hardware check Python script, and if we look for CPU sockets, not all of you will need to do this. This is a quirk again to do with my particular rig. So the Asus motherboard with the i7 Southbridge socket, chipset. Obviously, it's not Westmere, so you're going to get the odd bit of weirdness going on. Again, this is unique, I found, to VirtualBox. Some of the other virtualization platforms won't suffer from this, but again, just something to take into consideration. So I've commented out the original line here, and I've replaced that with my own, where I'm forcing the number of CPU sockets to 1, because physically in my box I do only have 1. The reason I'm doing this check seems to fail for some reason further up in the script. When it actually goes to determine how many sockets I have, it returns 0, and later on we get a divide by 0 error. So I'm just forcing it to 1 to get it past that point. Not a big deal really. Again, you might have to do the odd little tricky thing to get around some of these checks. Alright, we'll come back to this shortly. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to the end of the installation of the various SUSE Linux packages now, so we'll just watch this end, and the next step is I'm pretty sure it'll ask for a reboot at this point, restart the virtual machine, and then we'll move on to the post-installation activities for the installation of the OS. Cool. So getting ready for the reboot. Just kick that off, save up all 2 seconds there. Okay, we're just going to also boot from the hard drive at this point. Okay, so we're defining the password for root. You'll be prompted for a number of different things, of course. So my hostname is PyCon, my domain name is Helios. If anyone out there is a Battlestar Galactica fan, they'll know what all that is. I'm just going to disable the change hostname via DHCP because I want it to be all static. And at this point, you can elect to take the default options for the network interfaces and carry on, but I'm probably going to set them up quickly here. You'll be also asked about the firewall. I'd recommend you disable the firewall just for ease of use, given it's a home PC. Hopefully you've got a nice firewall on your router and firewalls on the on your physical machine. So go to the network interfaces and we'll just go have a look at the hostname and DNS. So PyCon, Helios, make sure this change hostname via DHCP is disabled. Routing, nothing special in there. Right, so we're going to go to the first adapter. I don't know if you remember the order, but what we've got is Ethernet 0. This is going to be the static IP which is used on the internal network between the various Oracle VirtualBox virtual machines. So you've got to get this defined. Now, this one here was our NAT. So we're just going to set that to being DHCP. And the third adapter was our bridge. So it's the bridge from the virtual adapter to the physical adapter. That's what we can use for NATing in from the desktop through to the virtual machine as well. Cool, got those set. Firewalls disabled, network cards or network interfaces now defined, and that should be good to go. So we'll just carry on with that. Again, if you make a mistake at this point, it doesn't really matter. You can go into YAST once we get into the operating system and make the various changes that you need. And again, of course, based on your PC setup, based on the type of router you may have and so forth, you might need different options here anyway. So it's a case of really working through the network connectivity side, which can take a little bit of time. Google is your friend again on this if you have any challenges. But that's okay. So we'll test a connection out to the internet. We'll see if this is going to work straight away for us. Hopefully it will. Some routers can be a little slow on registering the IP. Mine historically has been a little slow as my internet service provider provides us with one of these routers which actually you can barely configure. It's all good. What have we got here? Technical support. Yeah, whatever. We'll let that run through. Again, I probably should just click configure later and carry it on. This kind of stuff's not very important. What have we got? Yeah, cancel. We'll configure that later and we'll just skip all this. Configure, yep, come on. You'll be forced to define a user shortly. So our authentication method, obviously I'm just going to use your typical Unix or Linux, I should say, etc password. Of course you could be using LDAP or Windows Domain Controller. Alright, let's define an account, which you're not really going to use for what we're doing. Later on we'll be configuring the SID ADM and HANA ADM accounts as part of those installations later on. As you can see, so far the installation is pretty straightforward. There's not much to it really. A few questions, a few prompts. It's really about you knowing primarily the makeup of your Ethernet adapters and the initial configuration of the virtual machine at the beginning. That's the secret behind it all. Just like with all things with SAP, if you've got a good idea up front of what you're trying to do, and you know all the pre-configuration and preparatory steps to do, that will always save the headaches later on. Excuse me. Okay, just going through the final stages. This cloning the system isn't actually taking a full copy of the hard drive or anything, so don't worry about that. It's just the configuration. Now, at this point, if you had not configured your network adapters, the minute you get into the operating system, I would recommend you do so. And then the second step you would do after that, which will be our first step, of course, once we get in, is to install the VirtualBox guest add-ons. They will help to eliminate 99% of your challenges around copy and paste. They will help you to also resolve any window resizing issues you may have, which have been known to crash this version of SUSE Linux as well, through VirtualBox that is. Okay, what are we doing? Right, so I want to remove this disk. So we're going to just remove the SUSE Linux disk for a second. And now we are going to install the guest add-ons. And we should find this new version of VirtualBox, the latest version, if you download it, the guest additions seem to install almost, I'll say, perfectly the first time around. The previous couple of versions, there had been a couple of challenges with this actually. So again, Google's your friend. If you do have problems with this, there are workarounds to get this stuff working, which are relatively painless. The type of thing I definitely wouldn't have worked out by myself. But as I said, this new version is just fine. Okay, once you've installed the guest add-ons, you will need to actually restart the virtual machine. So just using my start buttons because the mouse stops responding here. And we'll just shut down, restart, root password, and away we go. Okay, we'll just pause here and we'll start again once this is back up and running. So we're now just logging in after the reboot. And once we get this back up, we shall remove that virtual disk, which is the VirtualBox guest add-ins. And we want to remount our SUSE Linux media. Oops. Might have been a bit too quick for it. There we go. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start up a, well, first of all, let's launch Firefox and make sure we can get out to the internet here. This is only important for being able to download latest patches for SUSE and so forth, which of course ideally in a typical SAP enterprise environment you would not be doing it this way at all. But it's just good to be able to get out to the internet and have access to various tools that you might want to download, different SSH clients and so forth. So you can see we've got internet access. Okay, so we're going to launch a SSH session here. So let's just find GNOME terminal will do. Yep, we're on as root. and we're on the right host. Okay, the first thing we do is update host file. And that is my TARDIS. And as I said, the TARDIS is my software repository. Oops, goodness. Fat fingers. Right, so we've got that defined, and I've got PyCon. I won't need access to my other virtual machines at this point, so we just want to confirm that we can ping TARDIS. The other thing we might want to do is from a command prompt or something, we might want to confirm that we can actually ping the local PyCon. Now, if I do PyCon, it's not going to find anything, it won't resolve because I've not got that defined in my local host file or in DNS or anything like that. So what I do have though is my netted IP is that, and that's working. Where you'd see that would be on your router definition. So I set that up earlier, but again, that'll be specific to you and your needs. So I've got connectivity into the virtual machine. This virtual machine can talk over to the TARDIS virtual machine, and let's just confirm that. Ping, what am I pinging? That's an old one. And we'll make this PyCon. So we're not sure we can ping PyCon from here, and we can. So that's good. So on the internal network, internal VirtualBox network, our VMs are talking away quite happily. And from our actual guest, we were going to install HANA and NetWeaver 7.4. We can talk to software repository, we can get it to the internet, we can talk from the physical PC actually into the virtual machine as well, which is good. So our network connectivity is pretty sound at this point. So really we're getting pretty close to the end of this initial session. The last thing we need to do is install some final software packages. So I just copied and pasted that from a little cheat sheet. You can see here. Zypper is a tool for installing these packages. Most of these will be installed anyway. I just wanted to make sure that they are. So we'll go ahead, get these going. This is why you need to mount that media earlier, by the way. Yes, carry on. So you can see pretty much all it's going to install is some JPackage utilities, Java, and the Mozilla translations package. Not that I need that. These packages were recommended by a gentleman on the SCN, Mr. W. Goslinger, who's got a great SCN blog actually about installing HANA on a virtual machine. I believe he was probably using a VMware player or something like that. And that's what got me interested in having a go with VirtualBox. So that's done now. So at this point in time, we've got a single rather large file system. We've got the shared drives that I've not talked too much about, but that gives us access to the actual other physical drives in my physical PC if I needed to, and our current mounted media. And so we're now in a position where the OS is pretty much ready. You've basically got a fully installed SUSE for SAP 11.2 operating system installed. We'll now continue with another session. Thanks for watching this one.